so calm. And of course, there's like homelessness and
You gotta be careful at night. But there's
chill. It's so chill.
Yeah, there's no city that you don't have to be careful at night.
Yeah, and it gave me like small city vibes, which was really cool.
Oakland?
Yeah.
How big is it?
It's not big at all. I think it's like the size of Santa Monica or something like that.
Really?
Yeah, it's like super small.
Man, you hear like the Oakland Raiders back in the day. I don't know if you're a sports guy. It's okay if you're not. But like I always thought like the colors like silver and black, and then like all the stigmas around Oakland. I was just like, God, I bet that place sucks. But you said it was cool,
dude. It's so nice. It's so clean. It's like crazy because you read all this shit on the news, and it's like so nice. I was like, wait, is this actually Auckland? Like the place like people talk shit about?
I didn't think it was bad at all.
Yeah,
nice. Great Chinese food there,
dude. The Chinese food there,
really?
Yeah, Oakland
crazy.
has well, I think a better Chinatown than San Fran, which people might burn me for that, but
yeah, my friend, he's from Oakland, and he said the same thing that you just said.
Yeah.
So
You think that the Chinatown in Oakland is better than one in San Fran? Isn't the San Fran one like a really famous
it's
Chinatown?
super famous, yeah, but I don't know. The
it's
food
super
in
famous,
Oakland
and it's so
is really,
historic as well.
I only
Yeah,
tried
yeah.
one place in each, obviously, but I don't know. The one I went in Oakland had the edge.
That's pretty sick.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I read somewhere, and my friend also told me that there's like criminal gangs still operating in Chinatown, and when the last major won the elections, she like went there to have dinner like the first night because they have so much influence in the city and stuff. That's like crazy to me,
Yeah.
The gangsters, do you say?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, politicians want to be friends with them.
That's fucking crazy,
Yeah. A lot of money in there.
Yeah. People sometimes like to think that the U.S. isn't corrupt.
Very corrupt.
We're just like the best at, I don't know, setting the standard on what it should look like in a way.
We
or
have
what
a great facade.
Yeah, exactly.
Really
Great PR, man.
strong
Great PR.
outer shell, and then it's just soft goo on the inside.
And it stinks. no, the U.S. is great. But all right, well, sweet, man. Well, thanks for coming on the Celestial Show. This is a unique guest here. We have Pedro Murcia.
Pedro Murcia, yeah.
Say your full name.
Pedro Pablo Herrera Murcia.
There you go. I should be good at that. That's unfortunate. It doesn't stick to me as well as it should. But you mentioned gangs and whatnot, and so you are a movie producer.
I am, yeah.
And you did a movie about gang life in Guadalajara.
In Guatemala.
Guatemala. Why did I do that? Okay. Guatemala.
People do the same thing, man. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's pretty common,
Dude, I watched it last night and then finished it this morning. We started watching it last night around like 10. And I watched it previously, but again, it was like super late. It was after you left the last time you were here. And can you pronounce the name?
Cadejo Blanco.
Cadejo Blanco. Okay, so for those, if you speak English, I watched it with subtitles. It was amazing. Like, I'm not just saying this. Like, I genuinely was, like, kind of blown away with how good it was. Because I've had people in my life tell me, like, and I obviously don't come from L.A. and, like, being in Ohio and stuff. There's still, like, acting opportunities and movie producers and whatnot. And every time someone asked me to, like, watch a movie, like, they were acting in, I was like, oh, my God. Like, this is kind of, like, pretty embarrassing. But, like, dude, watching the movie was unfucking believable. Like, very captivating. Sad. I found it very sad.
Yeah.
Like, emotionally driven. But, I mean, I was, like, honestly shocked, like, that it was as captivating as it was just meeting you through Ellie. And then now here I am watching a movie. I'm just like, what the fuck? This is, like, really big time. Like,
appreciate that, man.
Yeah. And for those listening, I mean, we'll talk about it more, but you can get it on Amazon Prime is how I got it. And you can rent it a couple bucks. Totally worth it. Give it a like and all that stuff. But, dude, yeah, it was really, really cool.
Thank you so much for having me, man.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So let's get into it. Like, you told us pretty crazy stories last time. We were just kind of talking on the rooftop. We definitely had several beers. There's a lot you can retell and not feel bad about that. And you have a crazy story. So, like, you always knew you wanted to make movies. Let's just start with that.
Yeah, well, not really. I come from a family that every single person is a lawyer. So since like a really young age, I thought that I also want to just like follow those steps and be a lawyer as well. It it was so serious that when I turned like 12 or 13, my dad got me this book, which is the first book you read like your first year of like law school, and he's like, you know what, I'm just going to teach you this over the summer, so once you get into law school, it's going to be so easy for you the first year because you're going to be able to like understand everything, and you're going to be like ahead of everyone. And you know, it was very serious like that. But
Do you feel like that typically backfires for parents?
in my case, I think it didn't, because they are like pretty chill and supportive. So
I didn't mean like you're gonna like you end up like being a failure. You're obviously very successful, and it's very cool you do. But like I feel like when I think of my kids, so like we're musicians, Neal and I,
Yeah.
and if I wanted to like prepare them for being the best musician to have a career in it from
Yeah.
a very young age, like, hey, you're 10, you can move your fingers right, like we're gonna really get you into piano, guitar, whatever, producing, like teach
Yeah.
them like the EQ, like
Yeah.
some of the more technical stuff in music production. I feel like that they'd be like, I want to be a lawyer, and I'd be like, oh,
Yeah.
you know, like I
It
feel
can
like,
backfire.
not backfire is probably not the right term for it, but like
Yeah, but I understand what you're saying, and I think it did a little bit, you know, because they were like really looking forward to that, and I had been talking about that for like years, so you know, but like things change, and I remember, so basically how my like passion for like film started was like I started watching a lot of like Nat Geo documentaries, you know, about like history and animals and stuff like that. And I remember that I became really passionate about like the making of them. And I didn't know what a documentary was. You know, I just knew that I was just watching them and like enjoying them. And I think that kind of like sparked my interest in like film. And I told my dad that if he could buy me a camera, and he did, and I didn't know how to use it. And, you know, I've always been a very proactive person. So I told him like, hey, can I like do some like photography classes or something? And they found this like school, and they like enrolled me in photography classes. And I took photography classes for like a year. And then I went back home, and I'm like, I think I'm like ready, you know, I can shoot stuff. And then I realized that photography and shooting video, it's a totally different thing. And I was like, wait, I need to start all over again. And then I went to this like workshop to know how to like shoot video and like basic stuff like that. And I did it, and I remember that I liked it. And it kind of like just went off from there, you know?
did you like video or photography more? Like
Photography, man. I was so passionate about photography. I worked as a photographer for a couple of years when I was younger. You know, I'll say when I was like from like 15 to 18.
what kind of stuff? Was it like sports stuff or anything?
I was into like fashion and food styling, which is like pretty niche, like the food styling thing.
But it's like a huge demand, I feel like.
but-
Yeah. I like work for like a couple of restaurants like back home, and like I'll just like go there and take photos of their food and make it look good. You know, there's some pretty interesting things that you can do with food just to make it look a little bit more like appetizing, I'll say.
I'll ask a dumb question here, and sorry if I keep interrupting, but like this is just
No,
I think it's super
Just ask.
interesting because your story is insane. But like these little things, did you ever do like ads where they use fake food?
Dude, you do it all the time.
Really?
Like, there's some crazy techniques that you use.
Yeah.
Dude, I'll say that 75% of the food you see in like all the ads you see for like burgers and stuff, it's like fake stuff.
I think all
you
of
know?
it's fake.
It's an art.
Yeah.
It's definitely an art. So I did food styling, and I did like fashion photography for some time. I also worked for this company called Wakami. They do like bracelets and necklaces, and they are like really popular. They also sell them here in LA, but they are from back home, Guatemala. And I worked for them for like a year and did some like commercial like photo shoots for them. That was really fun. So yeah, man, I started with photography. I'm
And
still passionate about it.
Do you think it's more challenging than film?
I'll say they are equally as challenged. You know, I think with film, there's definitely more stuff behind it, you know, especially if you want to like shoot a film or a commercial or something like that. There's definitely like a larger team behind stuff. But I think they are like as equally challenging.
I can imagine. Photography to me is like every now and then I get lucky with something cool. But for the most part, like I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, we have this camera, like it's a pretty nice camera.
Yeah, it's a great
We
camera.
have one lens. You know, I've been meaning to buy like several lenses, and I don't know. I just like I see the pictures people are able to take, and I think there is like
Amazing.
a natural skill
Yeah.
for like being able to visualize that. I mean, even Ellie has it for like just taking pictures of you and your friends. Even like when I first started dating Ellie, I remember she'd be like, "Can you take a picture of us?" I'd be like, "Yeah, sure." And this is like basic iPhone shit, but like I'd be like, and she's just like, "No, you have to be like up in it and like all this." And then
Get
I'd
the
see
angle
them,
right.
and she'd get pictures of me. I'm like, "Damn, dude, like you're really good at this."
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
simple shit like that. I do not have any visual or like artistic ability with drawing. For me, it's all sound. I feel like that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
Did you learn how to develop film?
Dude, that's something that I always wanted to learn, but I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't. I have a film camera. I use it pretty often. I'll say that's a camera that I still use the most, but I have no idea how to do that. Would love to learn how to, you know.
Cool. Yeah, it's a process.
Is
Yeah.
that like a Super 8 or whatever? Those
No,
things?
it's just like
Any film.
a regular point and shoot film
Oh,
camera
I
that I
see,
have
I
that I
see.
use when I go to like parties and stuff like that. I like
That's
just bring
super
it.
cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, so you're doing the food styling and stuff. And when did you start to like? Because I feel like that's more you're learning the skill of it, and there is like an art behind it. But when did you start thinking I want to tell stories? In a way, like how did that transition happen? Was it,
Yeah.
like-
So I think so this is a pretty long story, but how kind of like everything started is that my dad, he is a lawyer, right? And he does criminal law, pretty hefty stuff. And what he did on the weekends is that he will open his office and he will provide free legal services for former gang members and current gang members who couldn't afford, pretty basic legal services like clearing their police records and stuff like that. And he did it for many, many years. And I remember going to my dad's office on the weekends and just like talking to all these people and stuff like that. And I found it really interesting, like their stories that they would tell me while they were like waiting and stuff like that. So I started like asking these kids if they wanted to like shoot stuff with me. And I started shooting these little silly videos with them, using a lot of these kids. And I directed my first short film when I was like probably like 16, and it was like a story about like this guy who gets into an issue with like a gang and stuff like that. But it was always like kind of like gang related and usually with like real people, and starting shooting those videos. And I was like, this is something that I feel like really interested about and really passionate about. I think that you can just film for I think this is something that I really like, but since like a very young age I found out that you can use cinema for social change. So
yeah, dude.
yeah, so when I started like shooting all these videos and using these kids, I realized that people started getting interested in like shooting more stuff and just being like really excited about it. So it was like a big distraction for them. So I was like, this is what I want to do, I just want to like make movies and stuff.
Well, that's like art in general. I think has a massive cultural effect.
Yeah.
Look at. I'll just say like I don't know if you can look at like poor white people essentially like throughout history. Like any. I guess like especially like disadvantaged people, like whatever. Like you have like the blues, and this is like African American. Then you have like classic country folk, like suffering societies that need distractions. Like when they're able to like, and that's kind of all art really.
Yeah.
Like you need some sort of emotional motive, but when it comes from like a place of distress, I wouldn't say it's always pain. Sometimes it could be beauty, but in beauty there could be a lot of like emotions behind things that kind of add this like depth to it. And if you're in in a world where maybe there's not a lot of options for you and you're surrounded by distractions that aren't good, I'm sure like finding something like that to be able to express yourself is unreal. Like the guys you're talking to, like they're probably like, holy shit, yeah, I can work on a short film. Like,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah. And
Real quick, what was it like interacting with them? Like, because when we think like, if you're talking like gang members, obviously they're trying to clean their life up and whatnot, but like, are they rough at first? Like, do they open up? How did you learn to like get them comfortable to be on camera? Was it just they wanted to, and there was something that was really cool, or was there a process at all for that? As you noticed, because you're a kid, like you're 16.
Yeah, I was really young. So most of the people that went there were like on like the younger side. Like definitely older than me, but like late 20s and stuff like that. And I remember that at first when he started doing it, it was a little bit difficult because, you know, some people can definitely be closed and they like wouldn't just talk to you. So it took like many like months and like even years, I'll say, because he did it for like 7 years or something like that. You know, he stopped doing it a couple of years ago, so it took like a really long time to kind of like gain their trust. But you know, I think since they like saw me and they knew that I was like, you know, my dad's son, of course, they were like a little bit more like open to talk to me. But it just took a while, you know. But once they were like, once they felt comfortable with me, I'll say everything just like went smoothly.
I see.
Could it be dangerous for them to take part in projects like that?
Definitely. I think at that time I didn't like kind of like understand the risks of many things. Of course I did it because I felt it was pretty interesting to like showcase a lot of like the stories and things they'll tell me. But I think, you know, maybe because, you know, many of these kids came from like rival gangs and stuff like that. But I always was like, you know, like pretty like smart about the idea of not like mixing like people from like, you know, like different groups, like in like a film or stuff like that.
Could you explain that a little bit, like what the gang culture is like?
Yeah, so specifically in Puerto Barrios, where I'm from, so I'm just gonna give a little bit of context where I'm from in the world. So I'm from this town that's called Puerto Barrios in the department of Izabal in the northeast coast of Guatemala. It's a pretty small town, Puerto Barrios. I'll say population 400,000, probably really small. There's a little bit of a gang culture there. They are not necessarily called like gangs or maras, but they are more something called clicas, which are like smaller, the organized like gangs of like little kids.
Little kids?
Yeah, little kids, like people on the younger side, man. Kind of like in the same lines of this film, City of God, you know?
Teenagers?
And there's a bunch of groups, you know, like operating like within that same area, but it's like mostly like clicas, you know, like, so yeah.
So I guess what drives them toward that? And these are probably dumb questions, I apologize, but like I'm just really curious to like understand because, you know, at least from my experience in Mexico, like you have, it is a huge disparity when it comes to like the wealthy and the poor.
Yeah.
The U.S. is like
Getting there.
yeah, but it's still nothing like what you would see in Central America from my exposure to it.
Sure.
And so is it just because like lack of opportunity or like what creates that culture, I guess?
think for me, I personally think that the main factor is the lack of education. I think that the education is basically the core of everything. So I guess if people don't have like, you know, like access to that, they are going to be like bored. And one of the ways of getting distracted in like really lower class communities in Latin America in general will be like, you know, like going out and hanging out with your friends, and eventually you're gonna end up like, you know, like being part of something like this. So I think education is definitely one of the biggest parts of that.
I see. It's just probably been there forever. Like you're born into it and it's just like
Basically.
part of it.
Yeah.
Damn, dude.
Are the gangs like money driven or what exactly?
I think yes, like always, you know, because this is pretty much their profession or the thing that they do. So I'll say like yes.
It's just the opportunity they have.
Mm-hmm.
Damn, dude. So you're exposed to that super young. What was that like being exposed? Like, did you think of like this is just normal? Like to be around all that? Or was it kind of like you opened your mind up and be like, well, not everywhere's like this, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good question because people have asked me that like many times. I think throughout the years I kind of like became used to that, and I understand that it's like not normal, you know, and there's like a lot of people are gonna find it like super interesting, and for me, you know, it's like, you know, my 9 to 5, you know, just hanging out with these people and stuff like that. But yeah, of course, like I was always aware of like what I was doing and like who these people were. And I kind of like understood that, you know, you have to be respectful and you have to be like patient and stuff like that. You cannot like push people to do stuff they don't want to do, of course. So, you know, I always understood the risk. I always felt safe. I don't think there wasn't a time where I was like, well, like, I think I fucked up and something was going to happen. But no, pretty chill.
Well, you're doing a good thing too. I mean, you're not trying to take advantage of anybody or anything like that. It's all just like cool. It's art.
Yeah.
Like art penetrates all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like look at like the '90s rap scene, and like gang culture and all this
It's a
stuff.
reflection
like,
of
Biggie,
the
Tupac.
culture.
Yeah.
It's just wild. Like, art really does break all barriers in a lot of ways, which is really, really cool. But film is much more complex than making a song or two. Like that's for sure.
Yeah. The amount of gear you must need.
Yeah, it's
having
crazy.
to script everything, storyboard, choose sets.
Takes a long time.
Yeah.
How long did your film take?
My film, El Cadejo Blanco, I started working on it I started working on it in the year 2016, and we shot the film in 2020, and the film came out in 2021. So from 2016 to 2021.
So about
5 years.
That's
like
a long time. But it's a long time.
But as far as films go, it's probably not crazy.
For context, Neal and I took a year and a half to make a record.
Yeah,
Like
I mean, once we really got into it, I'd say a year.
Yeah. But like, it's just like to put together a movie. Like you look at a movie, dude.
Unreal.
Especially when it's good.
Yeah.
And like, we were actually, when he was over, he showed up for the end of the movie. There's that scene in the restaurant at the end where she meets the the leader. I don't want to give too many spoilers, but like she meets the leader and there's a setting. Actually, is your town name on the screen of that restaurant? You said Barrios? What was the name of your town?
Puerto Barrios.
Puerto Barrios?
Maybe if it said something Barrios.
Where was it filmed? Because that's what I thought. When you said that, I was like, oh, that's on the screen in the end of the movie.
Oh, like that restaurant you're asking?
Yeah. Or is it just called something like that?
I don't remember the name of the restaurant. I don't think it's called something Barrios. I don't remember, honestly.
No, it doesn't really matter. But I was admiring it. Like, but there was the cool thing about
right?
Yeah, amazing, and like the way it's shot too. Like it was so professional. Like that's something you see in a lot of like movies where it's like a first time director or something, or like just okay. So I have a friend, and I love the dude, but you can tell he's like learning film. Like when I see his movies, like I can tell there's like this thing where, movies, one is like you don't want to be taken out of it for some reason because like of bad acting or like something that seems off. A story just like jumps around a bunch. Like you're like, oh, this is a movie and I'm watching it and I can tell. The best movies are the ones where you're like hypnotized kind of.
You're immersed. You're fully in it.
Yeah.
Like
and then
fly on the
the
wall.
movie you made, like really has a hypnotizing effect. Even in like the club scene and stuff. Like I was wondering the whole time, because I know you, because I met you, I was just like, how do they film a club scene? Like there's people who look like they're genuinely having fun and it looks like a real vibe, but it has to be like multiple takes, and like are people actually drinking alcohol? Like I have so many questions that are all over the place. But
that
like,
scene was crazy, man.
Yeah.
That scene was crazy. That scene was the most difficult scene to shoot.
I can imagine, because there's one shot where it was like there was like a split of people, and it was like the two main characters, and then it shot from their point of view the other direction, but you could tell it was like, I can imagine like, all right, like stop and then let's film the other way, or like how do you organize all of that? Like it's got to be so much.
Dude, that film took so much planning and logistics and whatnot. First of all, I remember the most expensive scene on the film because we had so many extras. We had about 110 extras, if I'm not mistaken, which it's honestly not a lot, trust me, because for like club scenes in like bigger films, I'll say there's like 300 people and stuff.
Wow.
But it was 110 people, and what we did is that we divided the entire group of extras in like we gave them like numbers and stuff like that, so they can be like within like different groups, and then we'll just like call them and like put them in the scene and tell them what to do and stuff like that. As for like the drinking, they were using like real bottles of beer, but it was water.
Oh, okay.
So they had to empty the entire thing and just like pour water. We shot that scene from like 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. So it was 12 hours of shooting, and it was so hectic. The other thing is that you see how the camera moves in that scene. We had to fly a camera operator from Mexico because operating a camera with like a Steadicam, which is like which is like the suit that you wear that is like plugged to like the camera. That's something that you really need to learn how to do. And not only you can just learn it on like the street, like you have to go to classes to do that. So you have to be a certified camera operator. And the closest one we found was in Mexico. And we flew him to like Puerto Barrios just for one day, just to shoot that scene.
Yeah. Was it stressful? You're like, all right, we only have 12 hours, or was it just whatever it takes?
It was like, yeah, it was pretty stressful because we knew that we only had him for like a day and a half, I think. But, we made it happen. But that scene just took so much work. And there's like, I also don't like want to give like spoilers and stuff, but... well, I think I'm not going to talk about that.
That's okay. Yeah. I mean, for this, like, it's we don't have to give away the movie. It's more like I just want to learn, like, how do you feel doing it? Because like we're musicians, right? Like like to give you a little background on us. I know, like we've told you we're in a band and stuff, but like Celestial as a project is really like we're trying to kind of send a deeper message. A lot of it has to do with I hate the term like existentialism. But it's like this, like multiple reality, but rooted in humanity kind of thing. It's almost like the way I would describe it is like feeling far away from home, like that kind of homesick feeling, but you're content about it. So it's like the bittersweet. And a lot of our songs, like our album is titled Hope, and you think you can make a cool sounding song, you can pick some cool guitars, throw some cool lyrics, breakup song, whatever. But like our mission is really to kind of create something that's more cinematic.
Right.
And as we develop our shows more, it's like, we want to develop that element as part of the performance. And then eventually we've talked about like doing a musical. That's way down the fucking road. But like, storytelling, not in a linear fashion, but taking you on a journey with music is something we consider constantly. And there's a lot of emotional input into that, and it has to come from somewhere deep. So like when I talk to you, that's like I'm trying to kind of like understand like what is your like there's obviously frustrations in the technical aspect of making it. But like, what are your emotions like going into this project? The stresses involved. Like, when does the creative journey begin? When does it get heavy? When does it stop and become just technical? Like, I know nothing about making movies, but you're very artistic, obviously. And so, I guess like when you are, so it's 2016. You're starting to make this film. The script is written.
No, so I'm gonna talk a little bit about like the making of the film. So in 2016, I started studying film, and my first day of classes, my first class, I had this professor whose name is Justin Lerner. He came to class and he was like, "Hey, my name's Justin. I'm from Los Angeles. I'm going to be your professor for this class. It's called Film Immersion, which is a class that that teaches you how to understand and kind of like read all the symbolisms of like film, which is one of the most important things when you are kind of like learning how to like make films." And
symbolism in film.
Symbolism in film.
So is this like an emotional like you want to get an emotional like response from people, or when you say symbolism, like
it's basically cinematic language. How can one image like kind of like show like many emotions to you and make you feel stuff?
Okay, I see what you're saying. It's like a photograph after like a tragedy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So in his first class, he said that he knew that he was going to come to Guatemala a lot to teach that class, and that he was open to the possibility of making a film there eventually. But he said it as a joke, And then I took that like really serious, and I remember that day I called my dad and I'm like, "Hey, there's this gringo who's like, he is my professor, and he said that he's like open for the possibility to making a film here." And what's crazy is that, I told you the story about like my dad's work with all these kids. So for many, many years, I had this like Bible of stories that I had like written of like these people have they essentially gave me a lot of like their stories, and I kind of like map every single thing possible, like structure of how like gangs works and like stories and stuff like that. So it was like, pretty extensive like research work that I did for many, many years. So I told my dad, and I'm like, hey, you think we can like fly to Puerto Barrios so we don't have to like drive or take a bus? So I make a good impression with him, and I'm going to invite him over to see if he's like down. And he's like, sure, yeah.
And planes are like a really common way to get around.
At that time there wasn't any like commercial flights from Guatemala City to Puerto Barrios, so I guess he basically asked for like a favor to one of his friends or something. And fast forward, I talked to Justin, and I'm like, hey, I'm the only person in my cohort who's not from the city, but from like a different part of town. Would you be down to come to my hometown for like 6 hours? Like I'll fly you there, and then we'll like fly back for like dinner, and then I just want to show you some locations and introduce you to some people. Maybe, like it sparks some ideas in your mind and stuff like that. He's like, sure, I'll do it. And then a couple of weekends went by, and we finally like flew to Puerto Barrios. We got there. I showed him so many locations. Then we went to have lunch with my parents, and then I told my dad to invite some of the kids, that he met, so Justin could meet them. And they got there to like the restaurant, and then I like kind of like told Justin a little bit about this idea I have, like gang culture in Puerto Barrios, and like all the stories that I had. And then he's like, yeah, man, this is really interesting. And then, we talked a little bit with some of the kids, and then we just left. And when we're on the plane on the way back, he's like all quiet and stuff. And I'm like, are you okay? He's like, yeah, I just think it's pretty interesting. Every single thing that I like saw and like heard and stuff like that.
Dude, you probably blew his fucking mind.
Yeah, I think so too. And then, we didn't talk about it for like couple weeks, I'll say. And then he like, he was still teaching there. He was still my professor. And then he's like, hey, do you think we could go back to Puerto Barrios for one weekend and maybe I can meet more people? And I'm like, you know what? I'm down. We can go there. And then we went to Puerto Barrios again, and I introduced him to more people. And then we did it the following weekend, and the following weekend, and the following weekend, and the following weekend. And then he's like, hey, I have news for you. I'm going to stop teaching at the school because I just want to focus my time to like research this because I think it's pretty interesting. And, maybe we can make a film. Like, maybe.
Holy shit.
And I was so young, man.
Did
I
he
had
speak
like
Spanish?
nothing to lose. Yeah, fluent in Spanish.
Okay.
He lived in Spain for like a year and a half, if I'm not mistaken. So he's like fluent in Spanish. And then, I was pretty young, and I didn't know where this could take me, and I had nothing to lose, and it was fun for me to just like bring in this guy and show him around and just like talk to people about like exciting stuff. And I was like, let's just do it. And
do you feel because you were so young you had more of like the fuck it muscle? Like I think the fuck it muscle is really powerful,
dude. 100%, 100%. Because I was taking so many classes, and I like missed so many things and opportunities just to go to Puerto Barrios and just like drive around and interview people and stuff like that, because it was like fun for me, and it was really interesting to see his process, like his research process, because I understood and I knew every single thing that I needed to know, but he didn't. And I was like, super like intrigued on his way of kind of like just learning about everything.
absorbing.
Yeah, absorbing essentially.
Yeah.
So we did this for like weeks and then like months, and then he's like, hey, I'm not going to teach anymore. I just want to focus my time on like research this with you. I'm going to go back to LA, and then I'm just going to be flying back to Puerto Barrios and be with you and keep interviewing people. And we did that for like a year. And then he's like, I think I know pretty much everything I need to know after like a year of research, man, which is a lot. So I'm just going to go back to LA, he said, and I'm just going to like write the script, and then I'm just going to reach out to you. And once I have it done, I'll send it to you, and then we can start talking. He wrote the script. He reached out to me a couple months ago, and he's like, Pedro, I have the first draft. You can read it. Of course, it was written in English. I read it. We talked about it. We started like making adjustments and corrections. And then he had the second draft and the third draft and the fourth draft and every single following draft. And then we translated the script from English to Spanish. then to Spanish, to Guatemalan Spanish, and then to Guatemalan Spanish, to Spanish with slang from Puerto Barrios. So it was like a whole process of translating the script. And then he's like, we need to keep attaching more people. Like, we need more producers involved and the DP and stuff. And we started like assembling this team. And at that point, it was probably like a year and a half, 2 years into the making of this film. And then we attached like more people. I obviously became a producer, right? And then we just started like working on it kind of like full time, And
was it like just this? It was a slow drip to like, okay, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening.
Yeah, exactly like that. Because as I said, I didn't expect anything, man. I was like just going with the flow. For me, it was just fun bringing this guy who was my professor and then my friend to my hometown and showing him around. Dude, I never thought that we were actually going to make the film, because making films, I think one of the most difficult parts of making films is financing the films. Usually it takes you anywhere from like 3 to 5 years just to finance your film.
Of course.
Especially small independent films like my film, it's so difficult. So, then we just like started working. We had a bigger team, kind of like reaching out to people. And then I remember that pretty much the script was locked and the team was locked and the DP and everything. And I moved to Spain and I was studying creative economics. And I remember that one day I was coming out from this bar. This was 2018. No, yeah, the summer of 2018. And I was coming out of like this bar, like leaving this club, and I get a call from Mauricio Escobar, who's one of the other producers of the film. And I pick up the call and he's like, Pedro, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, what's up? He's like, dude, I have some good news for you. And I'm like, what? We got the money for the film, so we're making the film. So just come back and let's just like start working on this like full time.
Oh my God.
And I left everything, man, and I moved back to Guatemala and to Puerto Barrios, and I just started working on it full time. We had an office in the city, Guatemala City, which is the main city in Guatemala. Then we had an office in Puerto Barrios, and I remember that it was really crazy because they had like this massive office in the city with so many people working on the film at the same time. And then I was there for like 3-5 days, and then we had a meeting, and they are like, well, Pedro, you are like no good in the city. You have to go back to Puerto Barrios and set up the entire production in Puerto Barrios for us. So when we drive to Puerto Barrios, everything's ready and everything's waiting for us. At that time, I was probably like 20 or 21. I think I was 20 years old. And they sent me to Puerto Barrios. And of course, we didn't have an office, but my parents, they have an office. So I was like, can I borrow your guys' conference room and use it as like the office of El Cadejo Blanco? And they were like, sure, just use it.
Dude.
And it was me. And it was the craziest thing.
That's insane. I wanted you to continue from that.
Yeah.
I have a few questions. Like, so you have this wasn't even like you had a vision maybe when you were a kid, when you first started working with your dad on the weekends, or like going in there and like meeting these people, and you did all this research, you compiled all this information, you introduced this guy, your teacher, from the U.S., from L.A., and he's absorbing all this, and then he writes a script. Did you ever have at a point prior to that did you ever have like a goal in mind, like I'm going to make a full film about this? Like, was it ever like you had a creative vision in your mind, and then if you did you ever have anxiety as it started to grow about it getting out of your hands and becoming something that you didn't intend it to, like creative control wise? Or was it just you were going with the flow and it was all working so well that you didn't have any of those issues?
That's a good question. I think I was kind of like going with the flow, but the most important thing for me was, that every single thing that he was writing with the film, I was just worried about how accurate that was going to be. That was like the biggest thing in my mind. But we did so much research with him, and he's like a very smart and talented filmmaker as well, that I felt pretty confident that once he had the first draft, if there was some stuff that we needed to like kind of like twitch, we could just do it, and we did.
Yeah. And he trusted you? Is it you felt like it was because like say I write a song, and sorry I have to keep relating this back to music, but like say I write a song, I bring it to Neal, and it's supposed to be guitar and then Neal's like, no, this should be banjo, or like, you know, whatever, like, and changes the song entirely. Sometimes that can work really well.
Yeah.
But as an artist, if you have this vision in mind and someone starts changing things a lot, it can add a lot of anxiety to your like project, and you can start to make decisions that maybe you wouldn't because you're stressed about that.
I see.
You know?
Yeah, I understand that. I was pretty vocal with all the things that I wanted Justin to like write or like research or like specifically do, and he listened to me about every single thing, like about every single thing. Like if I tell him like, dude, you cannot write about this, he wouldn't do it. So you know, in that sense, I had a lot of creative freedom as a producer, you know, to say and to have an opinion on the things that he was like researching and doing and writing and stuff like that. So I felt pretty comfortable, man.
That's amazing. Yeah, I don't think you understand how, well, again, to music, how lucky that is, that situation. You as young as you are, coming from the place you do, with the experience you have and all that, and then to be able to find someone who's going to actually listen and like bring all of your, I don't know, experiences and whatnot and thoughts on this like to life in line with that. Like a lot of people I think would try and like, oh, we're going to make it like this now and we're going to change this because this is, you know, more relatable to some people or whatever. You know, I don't know. I feel like it, in music at least, like that happens all the time. It's like, oh, you should say this twice because it's more catchy. It's like, yeah, but I didn't write the song that way. Like things like that can come up.
Yeah, I completely understand that. Yeah, and I know that I was really lucky to like met this person who would just listen to me. You know, like I'll like listen to him. He will listen to me. I took every single of his notes. He took every single of my notes. You know, and at the end of the day, I was like the main point of contact there. Yeah. So you have to listen to me. Like you have no option. You like he had to listen to me.
And you're the expert in it too.
Yeah.
You know everything about it.
Dude, that's insane. Were you the youngest person on the project? Besides like some of the actors?
Well,
who are probably younger?
I think my assistant was the younger person because at some point I had so many things to do that they told me, and it's like, so I'm going to continue the story and then I'm going to talk about this. But you know, so I said that we started using my parents' conference room as the office, and everything started becoming a little bit hectic because there was so many things to have ready. You know, I needed to get all the vehicles in the film. I needed to do the casting, which is a crazy story as well.
Yeah.
And then I just had to have all the logistics in general, you know, like the hotel, all the meals and stuff like that.
Oh my God, and you're 20.
And it was just me.
That's
and
so
I was just like,
I have to buy lunch for people. I'm like, wait, how many people? Wait, fuck.
yeah.
Like, you know,
And I was working on that, and then they told me like, hey, you can, you know, we have some budget for you to like hire another person, you know, who helps you. And I hired one of my classmates, you know, from like film school. I'm like, I'm just gonna bring him here. He's gonna live with me. He's going to stay in my house, you know, and we're just gonna work. And so I guess he was the youngest person because he was like 2 years younger than me. So he was like 18 at the time. And he was just one 18-year-old, one 20-year-old working this like massive film that we were about to do in my dad's office, you know, using my like mom's car. And I remember we had this whiteboard and I wrote minus 45 days. And I will update that every single day, 44, 43, 42, for the day that they were coming to Puerto Barrios, you know. And it was crazy. It was so much work. And then I remember that we needed a third person, of course. And I hired one of the actors of the film. He was like a person who's like a very... like he's like a person of service, and he was like really nice, and he was always texting me about like, hey, how's the film coming. So I hired him as an assistant as well, and then he was the third addition to like the film. And then
he was one of the actors, you said?
He's one of the actors.
Which character?
It's the character who works at the mechanic shop, who has a lot of tattoos.
Ah, okay,
Avi. Yeah, his name is Avi. And I hired him, and he was like the third addition to like our little team of like kids setting the production in Puerto Barrios. And yeah, man. And then people arrived, and we shot the film.
Wait, before we do that, let's get into casting.
Yeah.
Because casting, you told me a little bit about this, and I remember a bit, but like this is fascinating.
Yeah.
Because the whole time I was watching the movie, I was thinking about this.
And I was just like, man, you guys did extremely well. Ignore the planes or the helicopters. I know it's fine. It doesn't come up too bad on the audio. I'd rather have it up on the rooftop than in a room. It's just
This is so nice.
Yeah.
So nice.
We'll get the fire going in a second, dude. Don't wait. I mean, I could do it now, honestly.
No, it's fine.
But anyways, so what was casting like?
Dude, casting was, I think, one of the most interesting like stories that I can talk about making this film. So the casting process was really long. It took me about a year and a half to get all the actors and extras for the film. How it started is that, you're making a film about gangs and you want the film to be as accurate as possible. So we realized that we couldn't just hire professional actors, but we needed real people playing versions of themselves. So then
That's wild.
enter me, right? Because they are like, Pedro, I think you just have to scout people in Puerto Barrios, maybe some kids that maybe some kids that your dad has worked with, maybe people on the street. And then, I had a lot of creative freedom with that. They basically just gave me a profile of like how they imagine every single important character had to look like, but they gave me so many creative freedom. So what I started doing is that I started going to schools and universities in Puerto Barrios and just to like restaurants, and I would just like put flyers and talk to people, and that was working, but it wasn't working as much as I thought it would, because I had probably like 15 people coming per week, which is not a lot, and I didn't like the way they like read their lines and stuff like that. So I was like, I think I need to switch this and start doing like a different like research process. So what I started doing is that I started doing street casting, which, as the word says, I was just like casting people from the streets. I took my mom's car and I just drove around Puerto Barrios for hours, for like weeks. And I would just stop people on the street, man.
No way.
Just stop people on the street.
That's someone's dream, by the way. Everyone here in this town is just like, they want to be just like on the street. And
Yeah.
But obviously.
And I did that, and stopped so many people. And it's so funny because, I was doing this Q&A like a couple of months ago, and some guy asked me, didn't some of the people thought it was a little bit creepy, like like driving in like this like black car, like black SUV, and just like stopping them and be like, hey, do you want to be part of this film? And I just thought it was so funny.
Get in the van.
Yeah, I know. And so I did this for like weeks, and there's like this story of how I found Rudy, who's like the lead character of the film. It's the kid who has the hand tattoo, he does this.
Yeah.
So Rudy, the story how
But
I
his
found
name's
him,
Andreas.
his name's Andres
Okay,
in the
that's
film,
right,
and his
okay.
real name's Rudy. How I found
He was
him,
amazing, by the way.
dude, he's great. He's great. So how I found Rudy is that, I was doing my laps, just like driving around, and I needed gas, and I pull up to this gas station, and there was a mechanic shop next to the gas station, and I come out of the car, and I see this like kid with like afro like hair, like working on this car, and I saw him, and then I said, this kid looks like really interesting. He has like a very interesting look to him. And then I like walked to him, and I was like, hey man, like I think that you just have a great look, and I'm like doing casting for this film, and I don't know if you'll be interested in like, just like maybe just come and I'll give you some like lines to read, ask a couple of questions. And he's like, sure, but what's a casting? And then I kind of like explained to him.
Oh my God, dude.
And that's how I found him, man. So it was just like groundwork, man. I was just like there, like just like walking and driving and like stopping people and stuff like that. And then we got the rest of the people by word of mouth. Once we had a kid, like I'll like ask him, hey, you can introduce me to your friends, and they'll like introduce me to their friends and their friends and more friends. And I just started having like this like big network of like people.
Wow.
And
real quick, let me just interrupt a little bit. Dude, Rudy, that dude's face in that movie during some of the difficult scenes, like of the difficult, not decisions, but things he's forced to do in a sense. And like also that kind of like the coldness to him with it's like the shield he puts on, but there's like the emotional side to him that you only get like glimpses of in the movie. That dude fucking knocked it out of the park. Like that's insane that you found him working as a mechanic.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. Like, that's
I know,
serendipity,
it's
dude. That's
crazy.
like literally like meant to be. Imagine that dude too. Has he ever told you like he probably went back to work later and he was like his buddies working. We're just like, what was that about? It's like, oh, some movie or something. Like, what a random.
I know, it's a crazy story.
But he was amazing. I like fell in love with him during that movie.
Yeah, he is
Like-
great. It was definitely a little bit difficult for him to open up because, you know, once we had all the kids, we hired a acting coach.
Okay.
You know, and we moved some of these kids from Puerto Barrios to a apartment we rented in Guatemala City so they could practice with the acting coach. I think they rehearsed for like 6 to 7 months, if I'm not mistaken. And from just being people that I found on the street, they became professional actors, you
Straight
know?
up.
And it was really difficult for Rudy to open up because, you know, he had some trauma. You know, he has like a pretty interesting story. And it was difficult for him to get mad on screen.
Really?
You know what I mean? And to like kind of like express his emotions. So it took a really long time. But then he just did it, man. And
Yeah.
he was great. And people love his acting and
I
people love his
love-
performance.
He was the character that I love the main character a ton, but that dude, like the movie is like very, it's suspenseful in a way, but it's just kind of like heavy,
Yeah.
and it like your heart's racing, but you're not like waiting for something crazy to happen at all times. It's just like an intense film, like the overall theme of it.
Right.
And that dude like really encapsulated him, and then the I really love like the gang leader.
Oh, yeah. He's great.
He's amazing.
He has a
dude.
great look. Like those eyes.
Oh my god! Yeah, him
Oh,
and then
yeah.
the other guy who she tricks. I don't want to give too much away, but she gets in the car with him.
Yeah.
The other bad guy, I would say.
And fun fact, both of their real names are Rudy.
Really?
Both of them are called Rudy.
It's a great name.
Yeah, it's a great name. And yeah, man, it was a lot of work, you know?
So, of all the characters in the movie, of the street calling or whatever you described,
Street casting?
street casting. Yeah, sorry. What were that was the main character that way as well too, or was she like an actress prior?
Oh, yeah. There was 4 professional actors in the entire film. And Karen, who's, you know, like the lead actress of the film, she's a professional actress. She's very talented. She's actually won an acting award at Cannes Film Festival, which is the most important film festival in the universe. She's the lead actress of this film called The Golden Dream,
Okay.
which is one of the most amazing Latin American films that you guys should watch. It's great. Like, it's amazing. And she was the lead actress there. And how they found her for that film is that they did street casting and they found her on the streets.
No
And
way.
she became a professional actress. She acted for the film. And then she was just a professional actress. And then we just cast her for our film.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was basically the same process for like her first role.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's insane. I mean, not once, and I was expecting a little bit. I mean, nothing against you at all. Just anytime like someone tells me they made a movie or something like that, like you see little glimpses of like things that it's like the description I've heard in music production is always like a college athlete versus like a professional athlete. You know what I
Okay,
mean?
yeah.
And I always like I don't know. I just like I'll hear things in songs or like you watch a movie that's maybe lower budget or something, and you see it and you're like. Okay, I can tell what they were going for, but there's still like things that aren't quite over that threshold.
Yeah.
But dude, the movie was like, and I can't express this enough. Like, it exceeded all expectations when it came to
Appreciate
that like
that.
hypnotizing sort of
Yeah.
effect. And one thing I want to say to people listening is like, you should really watch this movie because even if like obviously I don't speak Spanish fluently, but something about watching a movie with subtitles when you don't speak the language, it really engages you more. Like
Yeah.
I didn't look at my phone one fucking time. Because it's like I'll miss something. If I did, I'd be like, oh shit, I got to rewind. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And so I really enjoyed, and I encourage people to watch it. You know, even like the Spanish thing, it's it doesn't make a difference when it comes to your level of enjoyment. In fact, I think it kind of helps a little bit. So
Yeah. Yeah. I
it's very cool.
completely agree.
So as you're casting that casting process of the street casting and all that, how long did that take? You said
It took me about a year and a half.
a year and a half, and that includes the training they were getting.
No, without the training.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah. And during that time, that's when your
What were you doing during that process?
In what sense?
So while you're street casting, what is going on with the rest of the crew?
People were working on, like the last bit of getting the money for the film, and stuff like that.
What's that process like?
Dude, in our case, we got 75% of the money came from the US and the rest of the money came from, like private equity in Guatemala, like people who just invested in the film.
And do they all expect like a return, or is it like just
as every single thing you do invest like you never know. So that's how we finance the film. But it just takes a long time. Just like pitching people a film that's about gangs, and you're working with real people. Like every single I think that every single people that has the possibility to be attached is gonna be a little bit hesitant, because of the topic and stuff like that. So it just
really
took some time. Yeah, it just.
I feel like that's like a super interesting topic.
Yeah, it's very interesting, but it just took some time. So while people were doing that, I was just like doing the casting for the film.
Yeah,
we were all doing our part. Yeah.
Wow. And so, as the characters are kind of like, you've cast these people, are you nervous? Like, are you like, holy shit, this might just fall apart? Or is this like something you're like fully confident in?
Every single time. You have no idea.
Because I would lose my mind.
I think that I was so stressed for like years. I think that I just couldn't sleep like throughout like the entire casting process for one main reason. Working with people that you found on the street, you're gonna encounter many challenges. One of the challenges that I encountered the most is that, believe it or not, but many of these people didn't have a cell phone.
Interesting.
So getting in touch with them was so difficult because I'll need to drive to their house and just like knock on their door and be like, hey, can your son like come to like the second call for like next week, Wednesday at 5 p.m. Dude, and it was so difficult because many of these kids lived in very rough conditions. So most of them, didn't live with their parents and stuff like that. And they'll like stay from Wednesday to Friday at their aunts and from like Sunday to Monday at their cousins. So it was like a whole thing that I had to kind of like track and understand to kind of like just see how can I get in touch with most of them.
Dude, and you're a kid. That's what's crazy.
And I'm a kid. And, so that was pretty stressful, man, because you have the perfect person and then you're like, yeah, I hope they like stay and don't fucked up and don't like go out drinking and like get in trouble and disappear for some time. And I was like always thinking about that. Always, always, always. That's why when we shot the film, when we were shooting the film, we had all the kids in like one house.
Yeah.
And we're like, just live here, we're going to take care of you.
And were you paying them? Or was there budget for that?
Oh, yeah. We paid every single one of them as much as they would make if they were shooting a film in the U.S.,
Whoa.
Yeah. So, everyone was happy. And yeah, but yeah, that thing was like the most like stressful thing while like doing the casting.
I can imagine. But that's an amazing story. What about sets? Because some of the sets, I love the sets. Like, so one example of it that I really loved was the scene where they, this is okay, this isn't a spoiler, when the two girls sneak out in the beginning, and they get on the motorcycles with the guys, like, and the club setting makes sense, but I love one thing about like Latin America, or like Latin America, at least where I've been, like places in Mexico and stuff, is you'll be in areas where it looks like the infrastructure is different, the architecture is different. So, like, for instance, in nice neighborhoods, it's kind of just like a lot of walls, essentially, and then you go indoors or driveways, and then you enter in, and there's like, the house is kind of like secluded in these walls a little bit.
Yeah.
Gated communities are like that too, which is in the film. That's an interesting character, by the way. But anyways, but in the cities, like clubs and restaurants and stuff, sometimes they seem, as someone who was born in the U.S. and I don't know, we like love big signs and all kinds of stuff. In the film, it was really interesting to see I mean, obviously it was filmed there, but like how accurate all those settings were for what I would expect of the movie. And so when you're picking locations and whatnot, is it easy because it's just, oh, this is what it is, and we just like whatever place we can get a hold of?
I understand.
Or are there certain spots where you're like, oh, this really captures this kind of setting?
Yeah, so there was as little as set dressing that you can imagine. I basically found, basically the locations where a character in the film as well. Because, for example, in like the barbershop scene, we shot at a real barbershop.
Dude, yeah,
and
that's a crazy
we used
scene.
like the things that were there. So, I took the challenge of just like finding the right and accurate locations so we didn't have to like set dress them as
I see.
as much.
And was
I
that
think
easier?
There was only one location that is like, I'm not going to say which one right now because I'm going to spoil the film, but there's only one location that like you're supposed to be in Puerto Barrios, but we shot it in a house in Guatemala City,
Okay.
But there's just only one, and then everything's just like, accurate.
Yeah. I liked Andreas's house or his apartment or whatever that was.
Yeah, so that's the house. That
then I
is
won't.
supposed to be in Puerto Barrios.
I can
That's
cut
what
that
I
out
wanna see.
if you want.
No.
Oh, okay. I don't think it gives anything away.
No, it
But
doesn't give anything away.
I loved that setting.
Yeah.
That to me was like, I felt like I was there. Like
Yeah.
I could like smell it, like in a way.
And
Like,
that's actually like the only like set dress location. Like they basically
Really?
they created that location. Yeah. They shot it in Guatemala City. Yeah.
Wow.
It's cool, right?
That's really cool,
Yeah.
man. Wow. So there wasn't like a ton of travel for these people, like organizing. I mean, obviously getting like from location to location, but that was the only place they had to really travel to.
So if you see the film, 25% of the film takes place in Guatemala City and the rest takes place in Puerto Barrios. In Guatemala City, we only had Andres, who's from Puerto Barrios, Rudy.
Okay.
So people didn't have to travel as much because all the extras were from the city, and Karen, the lead actress, she's from the city. And then after shooting in Guatemala City, I think they shot for 5 days. And I'm saying I think because I was in Puerto Barrios grinding, getting everything ready for them to come. They only shot for 5 days, and then in Puerto Barrios we shot for 30 days, which is
That's
a
so
month.
fast, though. Like that's so fast for a movie to me.
Yeah,
like the
it actually
organization
is.
level. And so you were solely responsible for like organizing.
Every single thing in Puerto Barrios.
Holy shit, dude!
Every single thing.
As a 20-year-old,
Every single thing. Yeah.
dude, I was the biggest dumbass at 20. Like you don't understand. That is so impressive to me. Wow, Neal, could you grab me a brew, buddy? Thanks.
Got you.
Thanks, dude. So who was the most interesting character that you met and worked with? And did some not work out? Like say you had someone cast. No, it's a double question, but I thought of it as I was asking.
Dude, I have the craziest story about one of the characters.
Okay.
In the clica, in like the little gang, we wanted to have different ages to be as accurate as possible. And one of the things that we needed was that we knew that we wanted a little kid. You know that
Yep.
in our film we have like a little kid.
Yep.
Okay. We knew that we wanted one little kid. And I found this kid whose name was Chucky. And he was
cute name.
Chucky, and he was from the neighborhood, He was involved in some like crazy stuff. He was probably like 9 or 8 years old, but he had like the personality of like a 15 or 17-year-old.
Yeah.
So basically I cast him for the film. I did the casting and stuff. People like him. And then when we're like getting ready to like prep and like shoot the film, and people were like 30 days away to arrive to Puerto Barrios, I go to his house because he didn't have a cell phone. Of course, he was a little kid, to talk to his mom. And she's like, he doesn't live here anymore. He went to the U.S. and he's living in New York City now with his father. And I'm like, what? And she's like, yeah, his dad, he's like a U.S. citizen, and he like did the entire thing, and they like flew to the U.S. to live there and live with him, like him and his sister.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, there's no way. She's like, yeah. So I'm like, he's in New York now? And she's like, yeah. And, I like found him on Facebook, and I like sent him like a Facebook message, and I'm like, hey Chuck, is it true that you're living in New York now? He's like, yeah, I'm here with my dad and stuff like that. Dude, and it got to the point that he was so good on camera that we were planning on going to New York City and bring him to Puerto Barrios just to be part of the film. But then, we realized that it was like this whole thing, and we could just like cast a different kid, in Puerto Barrios and
I
stuff
see.
like that. And the kid we have is perfect.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, that's one of the
What
one
the
of the
fuck?
big stories we have.
That kid's probably like, did you send him the movie?
Yeah, he's seen the movie. He's still my friend on Facebook.
That's awesome.
He's a teenager right now.
What's it like getting so close to these people and then like not really like when it wraps? Like that's got to be an insane
That's
experience.
a good question, man. That was one of the most interesting things and feelings that I've like felt and learned. We like spend so much time with these people, and then one day it just like ends, and people just go with their lives. It was pretty interesting to me because when we wrapped the film, every single person went back to Guatemala City or wherever they were from. And I was the only one who was from Puerto Barrios, so I just stayed. And I remember that I went to my house, and I remember that I was so excited because I was going to be able to finally sleep, like after like years of work. And I remember that I started getting calls from a lot of people, because what I did, which is a rookie mistake, next time it's going to be different, is that, I met so many people. I gave my phone away to so many people, like vendors, like people who rent that stuff, and like actors, extras, connections, blah, blah, blah. I probably gave my number away to like 700 people or something like that. And I started getting calls, from people like, hey, this is like John. And I'm like, I just want to know when the film's coming out and stuff like that. I had to change my number, man.
Yeah.
Because it was getting some crazy, like people asking me a lot of stuff. And then, I started becoming like really stressed, because then random numbers, because I didn't save the number, started like, just like being mean and asking me a bunch of stuff and
Damn,
stuff like
really?
that.
Like what were they mean about? That doesn't make sense.
People were like, hey, I was an extra in this film. Like, I hope like I make it in the cut, because if I don't do it, I'll beat you up and stuff
Oh
like
my
that.
God.
Yeah, so like stuff like that, And I didn't know who was talking to me, because I gave my phone away to so many people. And, it was strange. And I remember that my dad told me, you know what, just move to Guatemala City. My parents have a place in Guatemala City, and they're like, just go to Guatemala City for a couple of months, chill, But then the pandemic started.
Oh my
And then I had to go back to Puerto Barrios, to be with my parents. Because we wrapped the film in February 27th of 2020.
Yeah.
Good timing.
Like
Yeah.
a week and a half before the
Holy
world closed.
shit, dude.
Yeah, how lucky we were.
The rumors were starting at that time.
Yeah, like
there
people-
might be something. That's right around the
Yeah.
time I watched that Bill Gates TED Talk and nearly shit my pants, and I was just like, "Oh my god, we're gonna die."
I still remember that. Yeah, because I remember that when we were shooting the film, like, we're talking about like, oh yeah, there's a virus, we're gonna get sick. And people were not taking that seriously, and then it just happened, all of a sudden.
That was everybody though.
Yeah. But to answer your question about the kids, I was in touch with many of the actors for like a long, long time. But what happened and what changed everything is that, the pandemic started. So I kind of like lost track of a lot of people because, everyone was doing their own thing, and like, so I kind of like lost track of a lot of them, and I tried to be as active as possible with many of them, just like kind of like following up with them. And, it was a very hard thing as well, because, when you work with real people, there's a lot of challenges and things that you're going to encounter. And one of them is that one of the actors of the film got murdered.
No way.
A couple of weeks after the pandemic started. And I found out on like Facebook, like I saw like someone posted on Facebook, like something about him and stuff like that, so.
And you knew him, like you got to know that person,
dude, for years.
That's traumatic, man. That's
years.
horrific. I'm so sorry.
And, yeah, thank you. And then it's just stuff like that started happening.
Well, you build like a really, back to the art thing. I don't know. We spend a lot of time in the studio, and like Neal, Flo, even Fra, Warren, like our crew, Mike. It's like brothers. Like we put our heart and soul into the stuff, and it's just music, and not to downplay music. Like I look at music in a very similar light when it comes to like what goes into it. I
Yeah.
would say.
Yeah.
It's just less work. I mean, time wise, like it's much easier to make an album than a film in some cases. But like, you form like a real bond. Even you play a show with people.
You do,
you
man.
could like barely know them at all, but you play a show and it's a successful show, and it's. You could even be small, but things go right, and y'all support each other. Like, there's a crazy bond. So to work on a project like that, and especially with the background of these individuals, I mean, giving them an opportunity like that, whether or not you looked at it that way, like I imagine you probably looked at it. Well, you can answer this, but did you look at it more as like was there any part of you that thought like I'm giving you an amazing opportunity, or was it a lot of like let's do this together because we're gonna make this happen? Like you have that power kind of to make that decision on. These people.
I was just excited, man. And I've always been a believer of cinema for social change. So I was like, at the same time that like we're making this film and these people are perfect for the film, they are going to learn something. And after this, they're probably going to, like want to pursue a career in acting or like want to be like TPs and stuff like that. And something that I want to mention is that when we were working on the production of the film, we decided to partner with the foundation in Puerto Barrios to give some of the proceeds of the film that we knew that we will make in the future. We make this agreement that some of the proceeds will go to them so they can sponsor many of the kids' higher education,
That's amazing.
for like film programs and stuff like that.
Wow.
And many of the kids went to film school, man, and they went to the same film school that I went in Guatemala City, which is the best film school in Guatemala City.
And that's a life-changing thing. So we had another dude on the podcast, my good buddy David Arregui. I can't remember my R's very well, but Arregui. And he grew up in Ecuador. And went to a Berkeley School of Music, like sort of sister school, essentially, in Ecuador, and was getting his computer science degree at the same time. And he ended up getting an opportunity where he got a full scholarship to Berkeley, and it changed his life entirely. Like, I just want to emphasize like the impact that probably has on those people's lives.
Yeah.
Like, that's a very, very noble and incredible opportunity to give to those individuals.
Yeah.
Like, I know David firsthand. Like, his life is completely different than it would have been because he had passion and recorded songs with one mic in a garage, which is just awesome to hear. Like, and then ended up getting, like, people believed in him and he got that opportunity. Like, one person from that school, to get to go to the U.S. and actually do that. So, that's amazing you guys did that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, all right, you see, you guys, you rap, and then the editing process begins.
The editing process.
Were you involved in that? What was that like? That's got to be nuts.
Yeah, I was involved with that. Basically, we had 3 people working in the film at the same time. One person in Belgium, the other person in Guatemala, and Justin here in LA,
He was editing as well. What's his role?
Justin, he's the writer and director of the film.
Okay.
But, he's always involved in the editing process, which is a good thing. There's a lot of filmmakers that they don't get involved. They like wrap a film and they are like, just do your magic. I believe in you. But he's the type of filmmaker that he wants to be involved. He wants to see, he wants to give notes.
That's probably great for you to be exposed to someone like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Versus like, I was actually going to ask that question. It's like, it's hard to let go any control after you've been involved so much.
Yeah.
And I think if your heart tells you to, you should be as involved as you can without interrupting any processes, right?
Yeah.
What was that like for you? Like
In the editing process?
Yeah, being involved, but like kind of judging where can I step in versus where should I kind of let them do their thing.
Yeah, I understand that. I didn't have any issues with that because since like day one, since I was like the lead point of contact, I was like, look, if I tell you to do something, you have to do it. If I don't like it, you have to do it. And I'm going to tell you what's accurate and what's not. And I'm going to tell you what character or what person you need to hire. So I was like just making decisions after decisions and decisions. So, I didn't have any issues with that. Like even when we were doing all the edit process of the film, I was also involved in that. And,
Did you get in any fights? Any arguments? Like things like that?
Any arguments? Dude, there's always arguments when you're making a film because people are so stressed and you're living with people in the same place for like 30 days and you're like working like 12 hours a day and you're getting drunk with them on the weekends. There's always going to be issues, man. We had a lot of arguments about a lot of stuff, but just random
That's
stuff.
normal. Yeah, it's definitely normal. You were in the film.
I'm in the film,
Dude,
yeah.
I was like the whole time like, where is he? Where is he? And then the scene popped up, and I was like, there he is.
So that's a totally different person. Man. Like, hair's different, glasses are different.
Yeah, it really is. But I was so happy to see it because I was just like, there he is.
Dude,
Oh, yeah.
it's so funny. I'm not gonna spoil that, but it's so funny. But there's some day players, like people that they only need to be there for like one specific day, right? Like as the name says.
Oh, I see.
And there's like a couple throughout the film, there's like this guy who has to smoke weed in this scene, or like this guy who like it's like a drunk guy at like a club.
Dumb
And
question. How do you fake smoke weed in a movie?
It's
Like a fake cigarette or something?
we had this really incredible production designer. I have no idea exactly what he got, but I know it's just like they are basically just blowing air, man. It's just like
Really?
air. Yeah,
Huh.
just air. Yeah,
Because some
Crazy.
movies, it looks so fucking real.
Yeah, it was something real. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Like
Huh.
even like there's like a lot of gunshots in the film and stuff like that.
Yeah,
all of that,
dude.
A lot of production to make
Dude.
that look real.
Some of those shots were nice.
Look
like,
really
they
cool,
were
right?
really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm telling you, the whole movie, there wasn't a moment where I was just like, bullshit. You know what I mean? Like, not one, like, which is crazy. And it's not like I always do this thing, right? So say I show you our music,
Yeah.
right? You're probably going to have a little bit of you. It's like taking it from, say 100%, you love it.
Yeah.
Just because you know me, I mean, I could be totally wrong, but I probably get like a bonus of like at least a 25%. You know what I mean? It's like if it's a 50% to if you didn't know me, it'd be like a 75% like it. Just like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So there's a bias, which very simple way to say it. It's just saying there's bias. But I went overly explain that. But like, I tried to like ignore that completely throughout my experience watching it, and dude, I don't know. It wasn't required at all. That bias
Appreciate
wasn't
that.
required. So
Was it all practical effects?
Every single thing, practical effects. I think special effects, a little bit of blood and stuff like that, but
Like little CGI.
practical, all the gunshots and stuff like that, which is really cool, man, because it looks so real. Like it looks so real. But we had this amazing production designer, man, and the people that work in the art department and stuff. They were like geniuses in their craft.
yeah, the thing I loved about it was like when it came to like some of the violence, I would say it wasn't overly violent in any way, and it relied heavily on dialogue and setting and letting you sit in certain environments, which is like it's almost like there's like Tarantino films is like what I think of. Like there's that famous scene in The Hateful Eight, if you've ever seen that, where like the dude is like laying the line to go out, and it's like a 2-minute scene of a guy just walking back and forth, which sometimes can get over the top. But there was a few scenes in your film where like you were just sitting in it, and it felt right. Like you were just like really soaking in whatever energy is meant to be, soaked in at that time. Which I don't know how much like in the editing process and all that. It's like, how long do you let this go? How do you know when you have it right too? That's another question I have. It's
That's
like,
so difficult because I think once you go to the edit room, there's so many things that you can cut and change. That there's this saying, like a lot of people say it, but a lot of people truly believe that you like make your film in the edit room, because you have like so much things that you can like change and cut and that. And I think editing is one of the wildest crafts that you can learn, man, because it's like so specific. I don't think there's nothing like it in the entire world. Like just to edit a film and to be able to kind of like change the perspective of like what the viewer is watching and what the viewer is going to think and understand. That's really cool, man. It's a really cool thing to do.
and you set the pace.
You set the pace 100%.
Yeah.
You can make someone feel stressed or uneasy or sad, or happy just by the way you kind of like leave the shots play and stuff like that. It's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, the pace was very good too.
Yeah.
I've been playing a video game recently, and to totally derail it, and I've been trying to figure out why I like it so much. And like the music's amazing and all that stuff, but it's the pace.
The pace, yeah. The pace is
and
really important, yeah.
Yeah, it's I mean, especially in a video game, it's like 30 hours long. It's like, how boring can it get? You can just do the same thing. But like with movies especially, I think that's like one of the most important things You know, in music, you have the fuck it attitude of being like, if you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. But I think in movies, that's actually another question I want to ask you. So when you're making a movie, how much are you thinking about the audience?
Me personally, I really don't think about it. You know,
That's
I
good.
only think about like what's the story that I want to tell, and if people like it, you know, that's cool. And if people can like resonate with it, that's also cool. But at the end of the day, it's, you know, the story that I want to tell, you know, that Pedro wants to tell.
Yeah. I'm not ruining it at all. I loved the credits.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, I don't want to say anything other than that.
they are really cool.
Watch the movie to the end, folks. It's
They are
important.
really, really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, very deep, impactful movie, man. I literally can't say enough good things about it. It was an insane adventure on a topic that I never... I mean, dude, we see like Narcos.
Yeah.
And Narcos is cool.
Yeah.
But like your story is like real. Even, dude, there's one scene... Oh my God, I want to say it so bad. I'm not going to say it.
Yeah.
But there's a specific part of the barbershop scene that I found insane. Can I tell you off the mic?
Yeah. Yeah.
That, dude,
It's crazy, right?
that shit was like, oh, that's real. Like someone thought of that. Like that's not
Yeah.
just like a random like, oh, they do this all the time. It's like that was a decision to make.
Yeah.
Of
and
like-
that happens, you know.
That's what I'm saying. I was like, you know, I get on like scary parts of Reddit sometimes, you know, and like you see stuff and you read stories about like things like that and like how dark the world can be. And when I saw that, I was just like, what the fuck? Like that is that like pulls me in more than anything else. Those little details like that like really suck you in. Like them getting on the motorcycles, like that's another part of it where I was just like brilliant. You know what I mean? Like it's not clean. It's this wild, uneasy sort of like world, and the way it starts, the anxiety, the way it builds. I was just, I don't know, I was shocked, man. I was really impressed.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
So, well, cool, dude. I really appreciate you coming on. I mean, you have an amazing story. You're very, very generous for coming on.
I
Thank you.
appreciate you for having me, man.
Of course,
This was really fun. Yeah.
yeah, we want to share your story, dude. Like, this is really cool. I mean, the Celestial Band podcast, like, the Celestial Show. But you're just a really cool dude, and we hung out last time, and Ellie suggested, and I reached out, and you were down. So, can't thank you enough. Go ahead and shout out the movie if you want people to find your Instagram, things like that. Like, do your little plug real quick.
Sure, yeah. The film is called El Cadejo Blanco, and in the U.S., you can rent it and watch it in Apple TV, Google Play, and Prime Video, and you can watch it for free on Tubi, if I'm not mistaken. And in Latin America, you can watch it for free with your subscription of like Prime Video, if I'm not mistaken, as well. Oh, and in the U.S., you can also watch it on Canopy if you have a library card.
Oh,
And-
really cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
And my
Huge library guy over here. I love.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
You
library-
can watch it for free on Canopy. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And my Instagram, it's Pedro H. Murcia. And and thank you so much, guys, for having me. This was really
Thank
fun.
you, man.
We'll tag you, and we'll put. I'll put like the cover of the movie and like where people can find it and stuff
Yeah,
on
yeah.
our little
Appreciate
Instagram.
that.
But like it'll. I hope people watch it. All my friends have been sent it to them, forced them to watch it. I know my dad. He's probably listening. I'm forcing. He'll love this movie. Yeah, dude. We'll shout it from the rooftops. And very cool. We have to do a little plug. So we have a show Thursday. So this will be out Sunday. This will be out on the 8th. And so we have Celestial's playing the Virgil in Silver Lake at 7:40. Get there at 7, folks. Please, for the love of God, do not show up at 7:30. Also, tickets are on sale through the link in our Instagram. It's on Posh. It's also on Eventbrite if you want to go look it up. I didn't like that link as much. Posh seems to be a little bit easier. So we're using that. If you have any problems, just DM us. Yeah, it's going to be a really cool show. We're playing the whole Hope album.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
We're going to get through it.
Yeah,
We're going to be rushing, but we'll get through it.
we got 40 minutes. But like we're
Don't
going.
change the channel.
But yeah, we got a little practicing to do, but we were sounding really good in studio. We're super stoked. It's going to be a real rock and roll show. If you want to come, we can just put you on the list.
I'll
If you're-
be there.
All right, fuck yeah,
I'll
dude.
be there.
I
Hell
appreciate that.
yeah.
Yeah, should be a good crowd. We got a lot of people coming. But yeah, and then of course, stream Celestial, and yeah, that's it. Love you, folks. Peace. Thank you.
Good shit.
is the start